Me and John were here on time. Isn't that right, Joan of Arc?
Mr. Flibble's very cross.
She's a shady one, that Sister Joan.
Maybe she wouldn't be so shady if she wasn't left waiting all the time.
You know, I take 2 hours to do my face. It's a bit high. Will that do? I mean,
I can see we're off to a roving start then.
I want a squeaky seat, so if you hear the occasional, just know it's the chair.
Oh, yeah.
Shall we, my dear?
Yes, let's. Here we go, girls and boys and everyone else. Okay.
Wait, have we colour coordinated?
Look at your face. Oh, you see, if we've colour coordinated, you've pulled it off much better.
I like it. There's a theme here.
What? Beauty and the Beast?
Clearly, we have a psychic connection.
This is what happens when you plagiarize. Hello, I'm Sister Babeushka.
And I'm Sister Alaska Lott.
And this is Utter Nunsense.
This is the show where we pour ourselves a lovely cup of tea.
And utter nonsense, whatever pops into our head.
Normally it's me that gets my words thrown way around, but this time that was nice. That was nicely done. Do you want to try it again?
Yes, let's try it once more. Take 504. And utter whatever nonsense pops into our heads.
This is basically a laid-back chat between friends, and you get to watch.
And new episodes are put out at the start of every new month.
Woo! 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 Nailed it.
I wonder when we'll get to do this and it won't be 500 minutes.
I hope that it becomes more nonsensical each time.
Just try to one up every episode.
How much nonsense can we fit into the space of an intro?
So Alaska, last episode we were talking about diversity in drag, and I think there's an elephant in the room that we're going to look at today.
There's an elephant in the room? Oh, there it is. It's RuPaul's Drag Race. So, yeah, following on from last episode, it made sense to kind of delve into the world of RuPaul's Drag Race in more depth and just kind of share our thoughts on lots of different aspects.
Some of the topics that we'll touch on today are looking at, don't know why I had to touch my boobs while I'm talking there. I'm like, oh. Obviously how Drag Race has impacted the general public's perception of drag, some of our favourite queens and seasons over the years, and also taking a look at the judges that they've had over the time, and especially Mama Ru.
Essentially, we have a lot of opinions and we want to share them. For anyone who doesn't know, we are drag nuns, members of the Order of Perpetual Indulgence, and we have just a little bit of an interest in the drag community.
And we're actually recording this on a very special day, because today is actually the Order's 42nd birthday.
Happy birthday to us. Happy birthday to us. It was 42 years ago today that the very first sisters donned their habits and hit the streets of San Francisco.
And we've been spreading joy and serving the LGBTQ+ community ever since.
As one of the brothers in our house said, this essentially makes us the answer to life, the universe, and everything.
But only for this year.
So enjoy it while it lasts.
I would like to think in 42 years' time, my makeup skills will improve slightly.
Sorry, I was just contemplating whether I'd be alive in 42 years. I mean, either way, I'm going to look as pale as a ghost, so it still works. And that's the tea.
My God, what is today?
I might have just spat my drink everywhere.
I mean, I know you weren't a fan of it, but come on.
I need to be more serious. God, fuck's sake. Okay.
And that is the segue onto the main topic.
It's enough ambulation, my dear. Let's move on from the side dish to the main event.
Let's get ready for the lawsuit.
Let's get ready to rumble. Let's get ready to rumble.
Oh, yeah.
So, Alaska, I have a question. What do you think the impact on with fuck?
Wow, I think fuck has a major impact on every single country, every single race. Our very survival depends on fuck.
10 points to Slytherin. Yes, you win. I have another question. What do you think the impact has been with RuPaul's Drag Race and how that has brought the art of drag to the public's fuller awareness?
RuPaul's Drag Race? Let me think. Oh, you're talking about that RuPaul's Drag Race? Yeah, I think everyone's heard of that. I mean, clearly, it is an absolute juggernaut of the drag world. It's had such an impact across every type of drag in every country. Everyone who's into drag, or even everyone who's not, has seen something of RuPaul's Drag Race at this point. Just massive impact. Massive.
Yeah, pretty big. Most of you will have heard it, I'm sure. A lot of opinions about a lot of things in there, and I'm sure we'll get into more of them. But yeah, it's definitely been one of those cultural touchstones, I think, for a lot of people at some point learning about drag, even if they're not doing it themselves. So yeah, and it has had, you know, a really positive impact in that it's really brought it's really brought drag to the mainstream sort of forefront, and it's actually recognised as the art form that it is, in part thanks to Drag Race, not solely because of that, but it has been a big part. Yeah,
I mean, drag as an art form has existed for a long time, and you know, the kind of public awareness of it has kind of grown and shrunk a few times, I think, over the years, and there have been some big names. I mean, in the UK, we've had some big names who've become household names long before Drag Race was a thing. When you think of people like Lily Savage and I've forgotten his name, Danny LaRue.
Oh,
Danny LaRue was another, you know, UK drag icon that became absolutely massive. So clearly, you know, drag has had heydays in the past. And so I think RuPaul's Drag Race has been the kind of latest iteration where it's been not just a single queen and not just a single country. This has been a universal, global, catapulting drag well and truly into the mainstream and into the limelight, and has affected drag communities across the world.
Yeah, because there will have been, you know, sort of local legends or, you know, regional sort of celebrities that were drag artists. But yeah, I think it definitely feels like everyone, or a lot of people around the world globally, are now really keyed into more international players on that outfield as well.
Particularly in mainstream media. So this is not just, you know, live performances on the stage. This is on your TV sets. And in the UK, we're talking about on the BBC.
Just a shame the BBC are shit, but hey.
I don't have the BBC because I disagree with the BBC, but, you know, drag is on there.
Well, BBC, and yeah, like the fact that we've also got other drag shows that are happening on other channels as well.
So clearly, I mean, Drag Race has had an undeniably huge impact. And, you know, the real positive side to this is that drag is now so much more visible and accessible to people. More people are getting into drag as a result, and we're seeing lots of amazing drag artists coming to the fore and really upping the game for everyone as well. So there are some real benefits to the visibility that Drag Race has brought. And as we talked about last time, there are still areas of the drag community that are still part of an underground subculture, essentially, because they are not part of this revolution of drag. Drag artists who are drag kings, or they're non-binary drag artists, or, you know, they do something that's just so weird and different. A lot of that isn't seen on mainstream media. You still have to go seek out those live performances to see it. But I'm hoping that their time will come, you know, as drag as a whole becomes more visible, that they will also get their chance. I went to push my glasses onto my face there. They're not there.
Wondered what was happening.
I'm like, so while there have undeniably been positives to, you know, Drag Race and what it's done for the drag community, there are some, I could say, controversies that are in there as well. It's come with its fair share.
Yeah, there's definitely been problematic things coming up.
So should we start by chatting about some of the slurs that have been included in the show? And if you go back and watch the earliest seasons, like the very first ones, they stand out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, I remember sort of when I first started watching Drag Race, there'd already been like 3 or 4 seasons, and just like binging that weekend and going, oh, okay, they're going to say that every time.
The one that really stands out to me that you've mentioned is when they get a notification in the workroom and it says, "Ooh, you've got she-mail."
Ooh, girl, you got she-mail.
Not sure if that's mostly appropriate to be using.
Oh, it just gives me the bulk.
It could be generational, but yeah, the use of slurs so openly on a TV show that was so popular was interesting. It's always interesting when you go back and watch media several years after it's been made and catch these things as well.
And they also, like, I remember that there was a mini challenge called Female or She-mail.
It's time to play Female
Or she-mail.
Which again is just, oh, I mean, there's several things wrong with that one. It's so inappropriate, and to think it wasn't used just once, but it was used multiple times, and no one saw a problem with it in the show for quite a long time until, you know, there was a media uproar and they went, oh yeah, we should probably change that.
You just wonder what the fuck some people were thinking in the writing room when they thought, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, let's do that.
And even recently, you know, Ru used to have a line where she said, gentlemen, start your engines and may the best woman win. And recently they've changed that to may the best queen win. Because again, you know, trying to get away from such gendered language. But I don't think they've succeeded terribly. Some of the language has changed, but I think there's still a ways to go in order for it to be more accessible. We talked about this a whole lot in our last episode. If you've not seen it, you should go check it out, where we were talking about gender diversity in drag. And the language that comes with RuPaul's Drag Race, I think, very much plays into that.
Yeah, it is something that on watching the latest season, it's been quite noticeable, because after years of hearing "May the best woman win," I can now clock that, oh, they are saying "May the best drag queen" and "May the best queen win," which is more inclusive. But again, like you were mentioning that we've talked about previously, it's still "May the best queen win." And until we start opening up and giving a more broad spectrum of drag and having drag queens and kings, and neither kings nor queens showing up, I think there is still a way it could be more inclusive, but I suppose that also depends upon who they are having presenting in the show, and the format that they want to take the overall show with, if they want to keep it specific to drag queens, which also feels quite exclusionary in a way.
And drag queens that fit a certain mold as well, because I'm sure there's been at least one contestant that used like a beard as part of a look, and they were totally dragged for it. I mean, seriously. And I love bearded queens. Like, the whole point of drag is to fuck with gender expectations.
And touching on that, like the fact that there have been, like, the first time in the Snatch Game or on the runway when one of the contestants was sort of thinking outside the box and going, yes, I'm actually going to perform as this male person, remembering the first time how much the judges reacted against that and was like, well, that's not what we want to see. But now when you see it and you have 2 or 3 contestants playing on Snatch Game or throughout the runway looks, and people are like, yes, that worked. You really embodied that character. You pulled that off in drag. It's shown the judges that, you don't need to be the fishiest queen possible. You don't always have to play the female presenting character, but you can actually have more diversity, and you actually get some really good performances when you stop restricting people.
Yeah, to their credit, I mean, they definitely have improved. On the first season of UK Drag Race in Snatch Game, they had a contestant who did Donald Trump, for example, which is a male character. They did it really well. It was hilarious. So it is nice to see that is becoming more accepted. But yeah, there's still a long way to go, I think, in terms of opening up the stage for more drag artists.
Definitely. And another controversy or problematic area that I'm aware of anyway is how some of the queens and how some of the performers felt they've been treated by the judges, but also how that comes across in the editing and how the fan community reacts to that as well. The queens have felt they're pressured into acting a certain way or hiding parts of themselves from their fellow contestants and their judges. Again, more in the earlier episodes, I feel, than recent episodes. Again, that sort of gatekeeping of what drag is and not allowing certain people who don't present in a certain way, or don't feel they fit into a certain mold, being excluded from that or having to hide themselves just so they can get a chance to compete it's been welcoming to see that change over the years. But again, it's something that when you look back at those earlier seasons, it's something that can be quite cringeworthy in a sense, I feel.
I do think, though, that the editing of the show can do people really dirty sometimes. At the end of the day, Drag Race is about entertainment. They want you to be entertained. And that means that the editing is going to be done in order to maximize the entertainment value of what you're watching. In the kind of the confessionals, the video confessionals, I do know that there's a lot of editing goes on there, because they basically ask them to wear the same outfit every single time so that they can take snippets from across the season and stick it against whatever they want. So the comment wasn't necessarily made in reference to what you're seeing. The editors have put it there. What you're seeing is not what really happens. They are creating a story.
Yeah, and I remember that there was specifically one queen that was really vocal about that from their time, and I think, was it Fifi O'Hara from the, sort of the earlier seasons, and I think they were basically portrayed as the villain of that season.
I think that's happened more than once. Of course, we'll never know how true this is. There's always two sides to every story.
I suppose that's the problem with any sort of reality TV is, you know, as they say in the show, it's all about the game, and, you know, it's not RuPaul's best friend race and all that. So I suppose part of it is for us to be more objective viewers, in the sense that we shouldn't take everything that's on there as gospel.
I would love to have a show called Best Friend Race. I would do that show. It's all going to be fluffy bunnies, glitter and sparkles. Everyone's going to be happy. Everyone wins. That's a boring show. No one is going to commission that show.
I mean, I win though, right? I win. Right? Everybody wins.
Just don't tell Sister Joan of Arc. I can't take her angry face. Sister Joan! Oh, what a surprise to see you here.
Get out of here, Joan. This isn't your show.
I talked about the different ways that queens are represented, positives and not so positive aspects of the show. One of the big things, really, is Ru herself. I don't know how much of an influence Ru has on the way people are presented on the show, but we're led to think that Ru is quite an instrumental driving force behind the whole thing.
Especially as, you know, basically the star of the show. Their name's in the title, you expect them to be in it every episode, right? Yeah, I think there is definitely some issues.
Some things that make me feel a bit uncomfortable, just a bit.
Like, I don't know how the selection goes for who gets to go on the show, and I don't know how much of a veto Ru has on that, but I think, you know, Drag Race has definitely lacked sort of that diversity of different genders and different sort of art styles. It's probably gotten better over time, but as we talked on last episode, it's still not as inclusive as it could be.
So I brought my tea, and now it's time for the shades. Can we talk about Ru's face? No shade. It is kind of shade. Drew's Drew? Who the fuck is Drew? That Drew!
Bloody Drew, ruining Drag Race.
So, if you've gone back and watched previous seasons of Drag Race, you may have noticed a change in Ru's makeup. Does Ru do her own makeup? The answer is no. For a long, long time, Ru had like a dedicated makeup artist that would do their face. They stuck with them for ages until season 8, and they quit like that. And this meant that on the very first episode of season 9, Ru did not appear in drag. It's the only episode where they've been judging and Ru was not in drag. Because there was no one to do her face, because she doesn't do it herself. Then in the second episode of season 9, she did come out in drag, but just... And then after that, it got spectacularly better. And do you remember at the end of season 12, when everyone was in lockdown and we had like the last couple of episodes, the reunion and stuff, again, didn't do her own face because she didn't have anyone to do it. In fact, not only did she not do her own face, but she wore like some kind of weird fucking gimp mask. What the fuck was that?
That was the most horrible thing ever to watch on that episode.
It was bad enough having it for one episode, but then in the next one, the very last episode, did it again. It's like, what is this? And if you're thinking it's protecting you from COVID, it's not. Like the only bits we could see were your nose and your mouth. My theory is that Ru doesn't know how to do the modern style of drag makeup because it has changed. And Ru has been around for a long, long time. So I think Ru, you know, came to the fore with a different style of makeup as a club kid back in the, what was it, 80s, 90s. It's a different face. What the face you're seeing today, I don't know if she's ever learned how to do it.
That is a last piping hot cup of tea.
It makes me see Ru's commentary in a different light. So when they're judging queens and they're telling them about their makeup and talking about their blending and saying you need to elevate, it's not good enough. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, but I don't know if you can elevate. You elevated by having someone else do your face. These queens are doing amazing.
Very true.
It's like when you watch Simon Cowell judging people for singing, and I don't think he can sing for shit. So I'm like, how qualified are you really? I'm doubting your qualifications, girl.
Have you been waiting since last episode to get into that one?
Yes!
Oh, girl.
Well, now that I've got that off my chest.
I definitely think there have been other issues with Ru's personality, which have definitely become apparent even within latest season of UK Drag Race. The way that Ru reacted to something that was a shop bought dress and how that blew up over the internet at the clear amount of hatred that Ru has for H&M dresses.
Don't waste my time. I don't want to see any fucking H&M. You know, I came all the way across the pond. I want more. I want more.
You know, I get that maybe the look wasn't perfect, but the vitriol that was presented to that queen just for having that, and the fact that Ru had talked about how, you know, the way they spoke basically was like, oh, why did I bother coming over here if people aren't going to step up? Forgetting that some of these queens in that very episode have been talking about being made homeless, losing their jobs, having to, you know, crash with friends and try and work out what's going to happen, having to spend their life savings while their entire income streams dried up because events stopped.
It was just so fucking rude. So fucking rude. We're in the middle of a pandemic and, you know, these queens have had to go home. They've been sent home. Then they've had to come back at a time when they can't have people come and help them pack up again. They can't have people come to their house to do their fittings for their gowns and stuff like they normally would. They don't have access to a lot of shops because non-essential shops are shut. Where do you think they're going to get their fucking clothes from? I mean, seriously. And there were other queens who came out there with shop bought stuff as well. There was someone with, was it an ASOS jacket? And they didn't get read like that. The vitriol was so uncomfortable.
It makes you wonder whether or not it's somebody has been around and, you know, led the show for so long that they've forgotten what it's like to be a working queen that has to deal with booking their own sets in clubs around the country and having to find their own dresses, find their own makeup, work on that themselves. Where obviously Ru is in a place of privilege where they have a team around them, you know, makeup artists included, as you mentioned.
And hair, they have a previous contestant does their hair as well.
Again, really interesting to witness that person in a place of privilege not realizing just how difficult it's been for some queens, and reacting like that in such a way was less than comfortable watching, I'll say for sure.
It went beyond the normal critique into just pure nastiness. Drag Race should not be a place of hate. Your drag family should not be a place of hate. That's not what it's about.
And there's an argument between, you know, challenging someone to step up their game and do better, and then finding that line of what's just plain abuse to that person. And clearly that was one clear example that stood out, that you crossed that line.
And let's not forget that Ru has been guilty of, you know, saying things that are inappropriate before as well. You know, they've said on their Twitter or in, you know, to the media, they've made transphobic comments.
Uh-oh.
And then attempted to double down on it when people started calling them out, which is even worse. So not just going, oh shit, I made a mistake, I didn't realize, and apologizing, but, you know, trying to really stick with it until it became obvious that that just wasn't an option. I'm going to say it's because Rue's a boomer. Sorry. I think that Rue's of a certain generation that maybe Rue's just behind in the conversation. Whereas when you talk to young people now, the conversation is moving forward so much faster. And there are things that, you know, were considered acceptable even just 5 years ago that you should not be saying now because the conversation's moved on so much. And it feels like Rue's getting left behind. And it's just not keeping up with that conversation.
Yeah.
Or with the makeup, apparently.
Was there not an issue where at one point Rue had talked about Drag Race welcoming, you know, people from the trans community? Instead of tweeting out the trans flag, they'd like sent out, I think it was green and yellow and something else, which were definitely not trans colors. And it was just really interesting to hear that that might have been a thing as well. And I was like, what?
Oh dear.
Is there anything else we want to drag them on? I mean, other than being a fracker.
Of course. How could we forget about the fracking? Turns out they're a fracker. They own a huge bit of land and they sell the rights for fracking because boomer.
Now we've dragged Rue enough.
Despite all of this, I think that the main thing to focus on here is actually just the queens themselves, who are the contestants on the show, and the fact that we're getting to see so many different queens that we, you know, wouldn't have heard of otherwise, and appreciating their talents. And they are unbelievably talented. Thinking like the costume challenges in particular. The ones where you have to like sew a garment in a short amount of time and make it look like it's high couture. Like you'd be lucky if I could just get a bin bag on me with some holes for my arms and my legs and my head. Let's not forget that. No hole for the head, you just see the arms sticking out.
It's part of the look, it's okay.
It's couture, darling. I'll just stick some rhinestones on it.
I think I would definitely be one of those queens that goes on and it would be like, I don't know how to sew, please somebody help me. I think one of the staples of the show now is basically, you know, everyone's waiting to see the challenge, which is Snatch Game, you know, and I think that's definitely been one where you really get to see just how out the box some of the queens think, but also how well they can portray a character, but also bring themselves into that. Which,
I mean, you think about the range of skills that queens have to have, because you're talking about, you know, being able to do prepared comedy, stand-up comedy, sewing challenges, being able to walk a runway. You're asking queens to have the full range of all of these things and be able to excel at all of them as well. And music as well, dancing, the works.
The fact that some of these contestants are just so well-rounded, you know, is just absolutely breathtaking.
Do you have a favourite queen out of all of the seasons and all of the countries?
Oh, I don't know. You see, it's hard to pick just one. There's always like a handful, isn't there? You tell me your top three while I try and narrow down a top three out of the 500 odd people.
It's really hard to pick favourites, but the one that I love the most is, of course, the one and only Latrice motherfucking Royale. I cannot tell you how much I love her. She was fabulous in the show. She's fabulous live. When she was in All Stars, that was stolen from her. Oh, I stopped watching All Stars at that point. I was so angry. Manila Luzon, I also particularly enjoyed. The two of them together, they're a fantastic combination. And then a more recent one, Heidi in Closet, kind of stole my heart a little bit. She's so much fun to watch. Always makes you laugh with that little whistle in her speech. Yeah, really, I do love Heidi in Closet. And I'm glad that she didn't let Rue bully her out of her name.
True.
Like, if that's the name that you're feeling, you go for it.
God, every time, Rue, every time.
But there are so many amazing queens. They're ones that just will stick in your head forever.
Mandy.
And let's not forget Valentina with her mask, head of the time. Coronavirus.
I'm going to keep it on and stay 2 meters away. If I had to limit myself to a top 3, in no particular order, I think one of the queens that definitely stole my heart on their time was Ben de la Creme. Just for the fact that, they came in, I think, in the All-Stars season, and they realized they didn't need to sort of play the game, as it were, anymore, and just being confident in themselves. And that was really, beautiful to see being presented. I think I'd also have to go with Bianca Del Rio, because I'm a dark, sarcastic bitch.
Oh, actually, I forgot about Bianca. She is amazing. She deserves to be bumped up into the top 3, which is now top 4. I love her confidence. I love her dark, witty humor. Fabulous.
The iconic look where they came out all in silver, like everything painted, and I'm like, I know how difficult it is to glitter one's entire body.
How many times have you tried to glitter your entire body, Sister Babeushka?
And none never tells. And
The
then
bejazzle has become a bedazzle.
another queen that was just really interesting was, I think, Jinx Monsoon, who just like watching their season and seeing the other queens not taking them seriously, but then also how they were just water off a duck's back. And that's just such an important lesson, I think.
Chad Michaels, also such a talented queen. Honestly, just polished to perfection. Also belongs in the top 3, which is now 5.
I can see you can count well.
It's getting a bit crowded in here.
You can't possibly ever talk about Drag Race without the really perseverant Shangela.
Drag Race has brought so many of these amazing queens to the fore, and that is a real positive. I mean, I doubt I would have heard of most, if any, of them otherwise. And so, I mean, there are queens who will refuse to put themselves forward for Drag Race because they disagree with, the ethics, or with Ru, or with a variety of different things.
I know that Lily Savage has talked about how they would not go on it. They do not agree with what Drag Race presents as drag. And yeah, I'm sure there are many other queens across the world that don't want that opportunity to be involved in this particular show because of how it presents things, or how it asks people to fit into certain molds, or even just some of the problematic characters and or issues that we've sort of touched on in various ways.
And of course, British drag is traditionally very different from American style drag. It was a very different culture over here for a long, long time. That is being influenced now by the prevalence of Drag Race. But people like Lily Savage or Dame Edma, represent what British drag really was.
They definitely feel that the first season, I felt anyway, was more along the lines of, oh, these are really British queens here, which was quite refreshing to see. But then as we've had the second season now, it feels like there's been a slight shift in how that drag is presented and represented. My main go-to reference in my head anyway is that, oh, there was no bag of chips this season, bag of chips just felt so British in a way that was just unbelievably lovable.
What I did like, though, was that we got to see Scottish queens for the first time. There's a drag scene here, surprise! And not only did it include Scottish queens, but one of them won.
Suck on that, England.
Not that they were competitive or anything.
No.
What about judges? We've not dragged the judges yet. It's a drag race. There needs to be more dragging.
I think I only have like 1 or 2 comments on other judges. It's mostly you, isn't it?
I mean, where would we be without Michelle Visage?
Oh,
I mean, an absolute staple throughout the existence of Drag Race. No longer with the iconic, delicately put, no longer without the iconic. I don't know. In some ways, Michelle's quite savage, but I kind of low-key love her.
the way she approaches things, it's never felt in an aggressive manner. It's always felt really constructive. And when you see some of the relationships she has with contestants afterwards and how positive and like affirming that is, that's been really nice to see. So it shows that it's not just a paycheck for her, it is something that she is passionate about.
I mean, I know that sometimes Michelle's comments can come across as quite cutting, but I've also seen that when it's required, she knows the right time to, you know, be really human and sympathetic and realizes that there's something else going on. So when you get those cutting comments, she's just being to the point and giving you something that's actually quite accurate, really, most of the time.
I know I'd appreciate it. I'd be like, don't sugarcoat it, girl. Just tell me, what the fuck did I fuck up so I can do better? The only other sort of comment I had on the judges was I remember that in the first couple of seasons, I don't know if it was like up to season 3 or 4, but there was the other judge that was seen as the sort of staple along with Michelle, which was, I think it was Santino Rice. And I just remember their comments and like the way they acted around the queens, it always just read as more sleazy and less constructive.
It's the ick factor. I don't think we've seen them for a wee while now on the judges panel. I think Ross Matthews seems to have come along more recently in terms of how often he's on. I do like Ross Matthews.
I think it's sort of rotated between Ross and was it Carson Kressley is the other one?
Oh, yes.
Those characters have definitely felt more, you know, fun and entertaining and more constructive with the queens.
Oh, that was the chair.
Oh, you damn millennials. Yeah, we're done with judges now. Unless you have anything to add.
I think I added enough already.
God, that was a lot.
Yeah. We'll be having none of that.
Oh, God. Joan is disapproving again.
Oh, no. Oh, Sister Joan. We've said enough for one day. I'm done.
Thanks for sticking around, listening to us talk for ages.
So let's move on from RuPaul's Drag Race then. What are we going to talk about next time? Let's do something completely different.
So next time, because it would traditionally be the starting of Pride season across Scotland with back when, remember physical events when they would happen? A lot of events would be taking place across Scotland celebrating Pride. And so we thought it would be quite good to have that memory of what our first Prides were.
How exciting. So next episode is going to be a story time about our first Prides as sisters. I can't wait.
So if you enjoyed this episode of Utter Nunsense, please subscribe, like us, comment down below. You can catch us on YouTube and you can also find us on anywhere you get your podcasts, such as iTunes and Spotify. So subscribe, like, and leave us a comment there as well.
And don't forget to check us out on our other social media channels, which will be linked in the description down below. We did the thing.
We did the thing.
We did the thing. We did the thing. We did the thing. We did the thing. We did the thing.
Can't believe that's become the official closeout anthem.
Subscribe.